Yeah, we're dealing with the topic called as session management. It's a big topic. The solution is very simple, you do not have to worry. Still this topic will go on for 2 more classes. A vast subject because this is the biggest challenge developer faces while developing a web application. But finally, in simple words, what is session management? Storing client specific values. Yes? We are seeing all this topic now. So it means storing client specific values. Now why it becomes so important? Because when you are developing a web application, okay, every request comes and a response is given, the client and the server get disconnected because we are using a stateless protocol here. Okay, when you write a web application, client makes one request, response is given, there's going to be a disconnection. Now why that disconnection is so much to be highlighted means because in the next request you'll not be getting what? The previous values. That is one major problem what we are facing here. So like as this user goes on making multiple requests to your application, see he'll be making, first he'll be sending personal details, then he'll send professional details, means he's doing conversation, he's interacting with your application. So when he goes on interacting with your application, he'll be sending multiple requests, and in every request he'll be sending what? Values. So every time the request comes and the response is given, values means you will have the values, you have to store them somewhere. Okay, otherwise the value will be lost. Okay, so due to that, if you want to store it, yes, we know the alternative. We can use a database. We can have one table. This is one alternative. One option is what? When the request comes, personal details. What this servlet can do? Collect the values from the request, store it in DB, create one table. That's permanent storage. Yes or no? That's permanent storage, and you can give back the response. That's permanent storage. You can use it. Okay. Again, next request comes, again collect all the values, store it in database, give back the response. So values will be there permanently stored for you. Whenever you want, you can use it now. But this is a wrong approach. Approach is wrong. You will not get error here. This is the flaw. You have to use good architectures. So here what happens, what is the problem? Every time you hit the database, it's a performance hit. Why do you want to hit the database every time? Second thing is the user can quit midway. Yes or no? He can quit it in the midway. Like he'll say like he has entered these many values and suddenly 2 values he enters and he quits. So he'll be having what? Incomplete data in the database. Again next time when he comes now, what he'll do? He'll start entering the values from the beginning. That is incomplete data. So even though database is the good option to store your values permanently, you should use it appropriately, correctly. Doesn't mean that every time you get the value, dump it into database. Okay, so you should continue like this, and here you should actually give an option. Here, what is that? Just let this remain. See this, like do you wish to become a member? Like this you have to give him an option. Do you wish to become a member? Like this. If he says yes, that time what you can do? Collect all the values and then dump it into database. So you should wait till he gives all the values to you. When he's confirming, that time you do it. So first request, don't store in database. Second request, don't store. Third request, don't store. But here you have to store. But here to store all the values, where will you get all these values from now? Question is that. So until and unless you are confirming, until and unless the user is confirming, you are not going to hit the database. That's the problem. Understood? So if you are not storing in database, where will the values be stored? That becomes the question here. So there are 3 layers here. One is the client layer, one is the server layer, and the last one is the database layer. There are 3 tiers we say, tiers, T-I-E-R. Okay, 3-tier architecture we say. In the 3-tier architectures, this database is required, but you should know when to use it. So left is 2 options now. Either you can store the client values in the client side or in the server side. Last class I completed how do you store the client values in the client side itself by the help of cookies. Cookies is a very intelligent approach. What it will do? Request comes, response is given. Request comes, response is given. So in the response what you will be doing? Those 2 values you will be sending as cookie. Next request comes, request values also will come, cookie value will also come. So that's how you can use all this. Perfect. Everything has been perfect here. But the problem in cookie is what? Security problem. Browser can delete the cookies or reject the cookies. So many problems are there. So that's why we do not trust what? Storing values in client side. So last option is we are having what? Server side only. Among the 3, you need support on the server side itself. Means again we are depending on whom now? Server. Okay, so again we are going to depend on the server now. So every time the request comes, we have to store it in an object now. Correct? And then some object, but you can't trust request response object, because if you collect the values from the request, store it somewhere now, because request and response objects, why we can't trust? Once the response is given, they are destroyed. Again next request comes, new request, new values, but old values will not be there. So you know how many objects you have learned now. Okay, you know the behavior of each and every object. Request response object, they are created every time the request comes, they are destroyed every time the response is given. So you can't depend on them for storing conversational state. Conversational state means every request values will become, no, you can't store that. Then next, you can't use config object, because if you store the values in config object, you know the different objects. That means config object is not accessible in another servlet. Values you cannot access. I have shown you this with example also. Okay, then the value store, you can store it in context object. If you store it in context object, what happens? The problem is all users will be using what? The same context, so it will overwrite. It is global, so you can't use the context. Last left is one option now. Which one? Your instance of the servlet only. In the your instance of the servlet, supposing your address personal details servlet is there now. So there what you can do? You can have what? Some instance variables. Something like, okay, string, name, f name, string, l name. Then what? Okay, some more values. You can, if you, then you'll have do get. So you can initialize this now. F name is equal to request dot get parameter of fn, something like this. Get the values, store it in the instance variable. Similarly, l name is equal to request dot get parameter of ln, like this. Means it will be stored in the servlet now. But using instance variables in servlet, you should be very careful, because your servlet is running in which one? Multi-threaded environment. The code what you are writing in your class is running in multi-threaded environment. So first request comes, it will have some value. Next request comes, what will happen? It will overwrite. All requests are using what? Multiple clients will be using the same servlet. It will overwrite, because you are using multi-thread model. So these are all the drawbacks. So we need on terrific support now. See how big the problem is. Solution is very, very simple, but understand the difficulty the developer is facing. For this, the solution is there. So you cannot store the values in the servlet, because we are using multi-thread model and it will be overwriting. And declaring always, it means you should think twice before you declare what? An instance variable in a servlet, because the copy of the instance variable will be shared by all the clients. And that is one problem. One more problem is, if I store the value in this servlet, how do you access that value in another servlet? How do you get the reference to work with this servlet? You cannot access it now. If I store the values in this servlet, how do you get that value in second servlet? The value stored in second servlet, how will you get in third servlet? It's not possible. Understood? You cannot get the reference only. From one servlet cannot get the reference to what? Another servlet. Only if you get the reference, you can access the values and all that. A lot of problems are there. So due to these are all very important interview questions. You might be thinking, why I am telling you this story. These are terrific interview questions. Why? See, always remember, what are important interview questions is, always important concepts are only interview questions. Reason is, if you know the server to that extent, you can develop your application very well. That is why they become what? Most important interview question. Why can't I use request response object for storing values? Why can't I use config object for storing values? Why can't I use context object for storing values? Why can't I store the values in the instance of the servlet only? Terrific interview questions they are. Understood? So obviously I gave you all the reasons. In document also I will be giving it to you. Not a problem. Fine. So here you saw all the difficulty now. Database ruled out. Client side ruled out. In the server side some objects are there. They also ruled out. So we need one special object now. Yes or no? What design can you think? Because see, there will be multiple requests coming from multiple clients. Multiple requests coming from multiple clients. When multiple requests are coming from multiple clients, you have to store the values of what? All the clients. All the clients. But here one more thing is there. One client only will be making what? Multiple requests. So one client making multiple requests to your application. Likewise what happens? Multiple clients making multiple requests to your application. Getting it now? One client makes multiple requests. That is clear. Again, next what is the thing? Multiple clients making multiple requests. So all these clients information you have to store now. So what will you do now? What kind of a design can you think? It is solution is there, but you think of a solution here. Here the best option is what? For one client have one object now over solution. In the server side, what you do now? For one client, you have one object. That is nothing but what now? We are entering a HTTP session object. Yes. So last class we discussed session management is used nothing but storing client specific values. It can be done in what? Two ways. One is cookie object, you can store. The second one would be HTTP session object. So this stores values in client side, this stores values in what? Server side. Difference is only that much. But this session object is, you know how? For one on client you will have one on session object. That's the beauty of it. Okay. Now we have to study the life now. When it will get created, when it will get destroyed, how it will be stored. All that I am going to tell you. But concept is big. Coding is going to be very simple. Done? So let's see this now. So we'll be seeing this. HTTP, how does session object work now? For one client, one object. Understood? So you should know the rule now. One config, one servlet. One context, all servlets. One session object, one client. I'll summarize all that. You don't have to worry about all that. So that is why we'll be using the session object now. So database is ruled out now. Let me explain you how the session object works now. So here we start off. Session management with what now? HTTP session object. I gave a thorough introduction, all the problems. So now we are going to see session management with HTTP session object. Yeah? So what does the HTTP session object do? Let's see this. So client makes a request to the first HTML. Enter.html or something. HTML will do nothing, it will give back the response. Done? See this now. Let's come to this diagram now. User will enter the value. Ravi, Kumar, something like this the user is entering. The name of this input box is FN, the name of this input box is LN. Any name you want to give. Okay. So values will come now. How will the values come now? HTTP request body will bring these two values as parameters, request parameters. So here one request object will be created. Yes, it will be having what? FN and LN. So we'll collect the values from the request and I'll put it into an object called as session object. Clear? So here one session object. See, I need space only for that purpose. I'll remove this enter.html. Clear? But it is there. Enter.html is there. I'm making it small. That's it. Enter.html. Okay. So an object will be created now like this. So this is a session object. This for this client it will be created. So where is the object getting created now? Server side. So we'll retrieve it. You know how to get the value now? Request.get parameter. And what will I do? One session object I'll create it and I'll put it into the session object. See, code is very simple. You don't have to worry. Class, which are now? Personal detail servlet. You know extends HTTP servlet, all that you write. In doGet, what will you do now? doGet or doPost? Can you guess? Very simple code. String str first name is equal to request dot get parameter of fn. Get the value. Similarly, string str ln is equal to request dot get parameter of ln. Get the value. Simple. You know how to. The first step, collect values from request object. This is the first step. Next step, what you will do? Concept, that is C. This is concept. This is code. Then I'll show you output. Everything I'll cover. Yeah, that's the concept. So I'll say now, see this carefully. HTTP session. This is how you create the object. SES is equal to request dot get session. Very, very, very important method. Request dot get session. As soon as you tell that, one session object will be created. Okay, first time it will be created and then you'll say session dot set attribute. Session dot which method you are calling now? So we are exposing, means today I'll be teaching you in the library HTTP session class and its methods. Simple. Every day what I am doing is in the library I'll take one class and I start explaining you what? The different methods. More than that I'm not doing anything. Set attribute of what? Fn comma, this is the name, Fn comma what? strFn, that's it. That's all I'm doing. Session dot set attribute. Behind the scene, so many things will happen. I'll tell you all that story. But you just have to understand now. That's all you're doing. So values will be put now. So Fn will be there, Ln will be there. And you know what is the value of Fn? Ravi, what is the value of Ln? Kumar. So the values what you retrieve from the request and you put it here now. Where? In the session object. Ravi and Kumar is here. He'll give back the response. Once you give back the response, what happens? Request object is, this is destroyed. Session object is alive. And one client will have one session object now. You don't have to worry. Okay. So again next request comes. You'll have one more new request object. Yes or no? You'll have one more new request object. So supposingly this is current company, this is salary. So you're having CC and SAL. One more object is getting created. That will be supplied to which one? The second salad. Means which one? Professional detail salad. So here if you say request or get parameter, which value will you get? This value you will get. Current company value and salary value you will get. You will not get the which one? First name and last name, because that was there in request object. But if you want, you can get it now. From where? Session object you will get. Not from the request. Understood now? So values are there now. So like this what happens? You will start storing the values in the session object. Yes. Now a very interesting question I put to you. Just see this. So you are going to say write the same code now. What is that you'll be telling now? Class, personal detail over now, professional detail now. Detail select. Fine. You got what? Do get and request comma response. String str current company is equal to request dot get parameter of CC. Similarly string str sal is equal to request dot get parameter of sal. You're getting this? Okay. Now what will I do? HTTP session is equal to request dot get session. Fine. Code wise okay. But I'll put some questions to you. Set attribute you'll say session dot current company comma str cc session dot set attribute. That's all you'll be doing. See, as a developer we are doing only this much. Sal comma str sal. So if you do this, what will happen? Current company sal. Again this will have the values. Current company cluster salary will be 1000. Like this you are storing. Perfect. Everything is working perfect. But the question, your problem is solved. So as a developer you have to worry only this much. But definitely I'll bring some questions here. Only to give what? Clarity into the subject. Coding wise only this much you have to see now. Get the values, put it into session. Here also what will you do? Get the values, put it into session. Last what will you do? Here. Get attribute. In the last solid here, if you want retrieve, what will you do? Show details. So let. Very simple. All values from here you will get now. Class show details. Or I am just printing it. But if you want, you can connect to what? Database and store all the values. So here I will not get the values from what? I will not be getting the values from request. I will be getting the values from what? Session. HTTP session is equal to request dot get session. Simply string s1 is equal to request, what I say now? Session dot get attribute of what? Fn. Similarly string, all the values you get now, s2 is equal to session dot get attribute of ln. Just call. Okay, I'm sorry. The return type is object. The return type of get attribute, you know what it is? Object. Object E1, object E2. So you have to be very careful this time now. You have to convert them into, depending on the data types, string or int. Understood? You have to type, means first you convert in string should be typecasted now, either to string or int. Supposingly if it is age, salary, what will you do? It should be number, no? So that you typecast to integer, because see the value what you want to store in database should match now. In the database you have put the column as what? Varchar, so and integer. So all values you are getting first. When the user gives all the values, you'll be getting in the HTTPS text. What is select technology doing? Converting all of them as string. That string you have to convert it into your required format. All that you learn in projects, it's not a problem, but I'm getting the values. I'm getting the values in the form of object. Okay, so here I'll be printing. Later on we'll see all those conversion. You have to do typecasting now because the return type is object. Perfect. All your problems are solved. Yes or no? Now I'll bring the questions. Only to understand what? Your coding is over. As a developer, you should understand only this much. You'll store the values in session when you want, and you will, whenever you want, you will get it. So only two methods you are seeing now. What? Set attribute, get attribute. And how do you work with the session object? Request.get session. Now see this very carefully. First request, HTML, gives back the response, and the user is going to enter what? First name and last name. When you send now, what is the code you are written of? Personal details select, request.get session. Okay, session object is created. This session, see, you collected the values. I'm going with this one now. First name, last name, I'll get it, I'll put it into the session, I'll give back the response. Perfect. Okay, next request comes. The server thinking it is a new client. It does not know whether it is a old client or new client. For it, because it's a stateless protocol, no? Like this, many clients will be making requests. Now, how does the server identify that it is the same client? Because now, this time, it has to identify the client and get his corresponding session object. Because now you'll be having many session objects. Yes or no? This is one client what I'm talking. 2 clients, 3 clients, 4 clients. Now for every client what you'll have? One session object. It will not jumble up now. It will not jumble up also. But I'm explaining you how they have designed it. Okay. So clearly follow now what exactly they do. First request comes, HTML fine. Next request comes. So see, when the next request comes, the server every time it will be checking. Okay. So it has to keep track of the client, whether it's an old client or new client. For keeping track of that, it is exchanging one ID. Okay, it will be exchanging one ID called as JSessionID. Okay, means what will happen here? When the request comes now, every time the request comes, the server will check, is there an ID coming? Okay, if the ID comes, it's an old client. If the ID is not coming, it's a new client. That's how it will be identifying. So it comes, there's no ID this time. First time there will be no ID. So when you say request, when this first select is getting executed, this line, request.getSession. Okay, it checks, is there any ID coming from the client? No. When no ID is coming from the client, what it will do, you know? It will create a new session object. First time, when no ID is coming. Okay, so what will happen is, one ID also will be created. That will be something like JSessionID. And it will have a value. Name is JSessionID. Value will be something like some numerical value, hexadecimal value, 1111, something like that. Or 999, something like that you take. If you want the spelling of JSessionID, I'll write it here. JSessionID. So when there is no ID, what will the container do rather? Container, specifically speaking container, solid container. When the request comes, there is no ID coming from the client. The container will first create an ID like this. First it will create the ID. After that it will create the session object. And then it will bind, it will attach it. And the ID and the object will be attached. Okay, first time. And the response will be given. But when the response is given, the JSessionID moves to what? JSessionID. What is the value of JSessionID? In the response, the JSessionID is equal to 999, whatever is there, will be coming in what now? The response to the client side. It will come by default. By default it will be coming. So when you said request.getSession, what happened now first time? The ID is created, session object is created, both are binded. After binding, what it will do? Then okay, it will process and give back the response. Now the ID is moving to the client place. Next time when the request is coming, you know what happens? In the next request, client will be sending that JSessionID. It will send ID is equal to 999. So in the next request, you will be finding what? The JSessionID. Here in the second select, you are writing the same code. Now what you are writing? Request.getSession. So this time it will not create a new session object because it's seeing the ID. It's seeing the ID. What is the ID? Number 9999, something like that. It will take that ID number. Now it will see for that ID which session object is present there. Depending on that ID, that reference will be given to what? It means that you will get the reference here directly. So means depending on the ID, it will be working with the session object. Again, what you are doing? Set attribute. Because ID is coming. So ID is used for what here? Two things you have to understand. ID is used for tracking the client. Session object is used for storing the values. So again, it will be stored and the response will be given. Again, in the next response, what will happen? JSession ID will go to the client. So the ID will be moving from client to server, server to like this. So again, next request is made. He'll enter which value, street and city. Rajkumar Road and Bangalore he'll enter and he'll submit. So again, in the next request, what will go? ID it will go. So in every request, it will be going to client and server. Again, means client to server, server to client. It is coming now. Again, in the third select, what you are writing? Request.getSession. When you write request.getSession, first that method, what it will do? Checks whether ID is coming or not. If ID is coming, then it will search for that. It will take that ID and using that ID, it will search for the session object in the container. The container will search for the session object. Again, it will use this. Again, it will give back the response. Now, last you are saying retrieve all the values. See this. Do you wish to become a member? Yes. This select is getting executed now. Again, what is happening? ID is coming now. So ID will be exchanging like this. Again, it has come. JSession ID is here. Again, in the response, it will give back. Again in the request, it will be coming back. So ID comes now. Again, request.getSession. This is your code. What will happen? ID is coming now. As soon as it sees the ID, it will search for that corresponding session object. Okay, and then it will get the values now and it will process it. It's only a concept. Okay, but all that has been implemented for you. Why do you worry? Yes or no? See, because it's a stateless protocol, this much of difficulty is there. Because it's a stateless protocol, if you want to store the values in the client side, understood? There are two things you have to take care. One, you have to identify the client. Two, you have to store his values. Two things you have to do. If at all you want to store the values in the server side, if at all you want to store the values in the server, two things you have to do. One is you have to identify the client. Every time the client is making a request, whether it is the same client or not. And that will be done by exchanging ID. It will be identifying whether the client is an old client or new client with the exchange of what? ID by name, JSession ID. It will have some value like 999 or something. Okay. Another client will have the same ID but it will have what? Another value. Two clients I will discuss next. Understood? So every time the ID comes, the server will search for what? The corresponding session object. Brilliant mechanism. What all they have implemented for us now? You just have to use what? This support. This is called as session management. Understood? So I'll explain you with two clients now. Shall I clear this now, this side? If you are having doubts, I'll explain with what? Two clients. You will only understand. I'm going to clear the code now. Remember this code, you have written it now. So when I go on explaining you, see this now. Two clients making request. Very interesting now. So this is the same client, he'll make the request. First client, okay, it will display what? HTML. Once it displays the HTML, next is entering what? Personal details. So let two clients come now, no issue. He's entering what? First name. He's entering what? Last name, and he'll submit. So as soon as he submits, which both of them are executing which one? Personal details select only now. So first time which method will be called for both? Request.getSession. For both it will be called. Are the clients having ID? No. So for both the clients what will happen? One ID will be created. Who will create it? Container. Container is first checking request.getSession. Whenever it is called, first it checks whether then ID is coming or not. Okay. So no ID is there. So one more session ID will be created. Means it will be there inside the server. I am not having space. Just understand. Session ID, JSession ID is equal to 777, some number, and it will have its own session object. Done? So and his values will be stored now. FN. Supposing he is entering AA. Last time is A, something like that. So his values are getting stored here now. This is one more client. Okay, and then when the response is given, what is happening? The session ID will be sent to the client in the response. In the next request now, again what is coming? JSession ID will come now. In the request it will come now. Okay, he will enter now. What values he will enter now? Current company, current salary. He will be entering his professional details. and he'll submit. So again, what is happening now? Values are also coming, ID is also coming. Now once the ID comes now, here also request.getSession now. So if this client makes the request, what is the ID he is sending? 777. What is the ID he is sending? 999. So depending on the ID, it will search the correct session object. You don't worry about all this. Your duty is only 2 lines. What? Request.getSession, session.setAttribute. Your duty is simple, but that is what they have implemented. So that is the concept now. So this is a very important subject. Session. Are you following now? So again, means every time the request comes, ID will be first collected. Based on the ID, the session object will be searched. And it will be working internally. Understood? So that is why you call the method request.getSession. Every client will have his own thread now. So request.getSession means what will happen? When execution starts off, based on his ID, the session object will be retrieved internally. You will be having many session objects. Just I have written 2. You can have, if there are 1000 clients, 1000 session objects will be there now. So that's a very important interview question. How many session objects will be there in your container? Depends on number of clients. Very important interview question. Correct or no? How many config object? 1 per servlet. How many context object? 1 per application. How many session objects? Depends on clients. Number of clients. So correct the session object it will search and it will give it to you. You do not have to worry about all this. So that's what, see, means we are trying to do what? Store the values in the server side. Okay, so that's the reason. Session management with HTTP session object. If you want to do session management with HTTP session object, 2 things are there. What is that? One is maintaining session. Technically, it is called as maintaining session. What is maintaining session? Keeping track of client, that's all, or identifying all the, means identifying the client. Maintaining session means this is technical word, you have to use this word only in the interview, but the meaning of that is simple. Identifying or keeping track of client. Identifying or keeping track of client. How it will keep this? By exchanging ID, that's all. This will be done by exchange of ID called what? JSession ID. Very important. Understood? So this happens implicitly for us. You do not have to worry. This is happening implicitly. Understood? So next one is called as maintaining state of the session. Now what do you mean by maintaining state of the session? In that session some state will be there of values that you have to store. So this actually technical word it is, but in simple word it means storing client specific values. So for doing this what you will do? It will be done by what? That's it. Done by using HTTP session object. So developer's duty is not maintaining session. Developer's duty is only to maintain the state of the session. How will you do it? When you are using, you can use session object. It means HTTP session object. That's it. Clear? So here, because you are storing values in server side, all this will happen because the object is on server side now. Every time the client makes a request, the object has to be identified. That's why that ID will be exchanged. Done? Very, very important question. So all this I have to show you what now? First I explained you concept, then I explained you code. Then we saw diagram also. Lastly I have to show you output. Concept is very clear. Coding will be very simple now. Okay, so until and unless you understand the concept, code is going to be tough only. So that's why I first taught you the concept only. Everything is done for you. Just say now what? Request.getSession, session.set. Your duty is so simple, man. Rest all taken care. Clear? So I will show you now. First I will be showing you with one browser, then I will show you 2 browsers, all you will see. So this is the most important thing in your project. Okay. And you will be storing all your values in the client specific values in the session object. Very important. Okay. So and this this is one more reason why you use servlet technology. Servlet technology by default gives you what? Session management support, input output, networking, communication. Now what? More multi-threading, all that is there. Now one more thing what we are studying is session management. Okay, big topic. Still it will not be covered today. Some more things remain which we will be finalizing in the next class. Some doubts you will get here and there, but all will be finalized in the next class. Are you clear with all this? So first I have to show you what. Shall I clear this? So when I am executing the program now, refer to this diagram in your book. You will clearly understand what is happening. Clear? I will be going on to execute now. Shall I clear everything? Yeah, this HTTP 17th example you referred today, the 17th example. Yeah, the first page, it's normal. What is it? Enter.html. You're asking the user to enter what? First name, last name, age, phone, all these values you'll ask him to enter and you'll submit it. So once he submits, it will come to what? Personal. Mapping you know now. It will go to what? Person. Person means it will go to which one? Personal details select. So what is the personal details select going to do? Request.get parameter, very simple. Request.get session, set that. What is that you are doing, man? Out.println, rest all. Nothing you are doing. Brilliant support you got. Understood? So here first time what will happen? ID it will check. If ID is not there, it will create a new object. First time. Understood? So fine, anyway it will execute. Once the user enters these values, professional details and submits, because he prof, what will happen? Prof is this one next I have used URL pattern, it will come to professional details select. In professional details select now, when you say request.get session, this time it will be calling what? It will check whether the ID is coming. If ID is there, directly it will refer to what? The same session object. It's over. Problem only solved. So session management with HTTP session object. Okay, session management with HTTP session object. HTTP session is the name, class. So session management with HTTP session object. Understood? Two things are required. One is maintaining session, other one is maintaining state of the session. Maintaining session is happening implicitly by exchanging the ID. Only your duty is to maintain the state of the session by using the HTTP session object. If you don't store the state, you lose the value. That's all, nothing will happen. If you have a question, no, if I don't maintain the state, what will happen? Value will be lost. Next request, how will you get the value? That's all, nothing will happen. Yeah? So fine. So like this it goes on. Again, next select, in address details select also what will happen? Request start. Don't worry about the commented part. Okay. So just concentrate. Request start get parameter. What will I do? Request start get session. Store the values. Done? That's all I am doing. And finally, in the last select, show all details select means actually technically if you see from the diagram, we'll be inserting into database. Here I am not doing it. But I am showing you I can get the value. What you do, you retrieve all the values and store it into database. But see what I am doing, request start, no request now. There is no value in the request. You will get all the values from where now? Session. So request dot get session, see this session dot get attribute, typecast it to string. If it is of type integer, convert string to integer. Like that because all values are of type string. All values which are coming now will be of type string. So string first you typecast it to string. String you convert to integer, something like salary inlay and all that. How will you convert a string to int? Integer dot parse int. That's it. Yeah? If it is numerical value. Character means directly you can use it. That's all, very simple. See, I am getting all session dot get attribute, get attribute, get attribute. So this is how you have to understand code. Okay, code should be understood in this way. All you will be doing is you will be calling on method from any class like this. So hardly I covered how many methods now? Get session, set attribute, get attribute. So code I explained to you now. Next what I have to do finally? Output now. Yes, see this output. Because you will never be satisfied without output. I know that. You execute all these programs outside, man. It will be easy for you. Okay, I'll just go to some browser outside I'll use. Enter.html. So enter first name. I'll enter Ravi. second name Kumar, okay, age 111, phone number 1111, done. So I'll press submit. ID is not there first time, yes or no? When ID is not there first time, session object is created this time now. Values are stored in the session object and IDs come to me. I show you where is that ID. ID is there in my client machine now. Understood? That ID, JSession ID now, it's there now. So next time when I enter the value, company name cluster, okay, then next I'll enter previous company Infi, or I'll tell Sun company, correct? I'm having so much of Java knowledge. Correct, current salary 1000, expected salary would be 2000, something like this. You give some value. So now ID is going. ID is going. Once the ID goes, what happens? There you are telling what? Request.getSession. Because ID is going, same session object will be used. Set attribute. So it is storing all the values in the same session object. That's the brilliant part of it. It is stored. Understood? Street. Okay, you can give anything. Rajkumar Road. Then what? City. Bangalore. Then state. Karnataka. Then country. India. So again it is storing where? In the same session object. It is there. Now when I say click to see all details, all the values you have got. How many requests I made? 3. But all the values in all the requests you got now because I had stored it in session object. You want to store see in 2 clients, huh? See, I show you now. I am closing the browser. Done. See now 2 clients making simultaneous requests. You know we had a problem. If you use what? Context. See this. If I use context object, it was a problem. But now see this. Enter.html. First name AAA. Second name AAA. Age 1111. Phone number 11111. Done. So this is one client. He is having his own session object. ID is here. For him it is here now. Done. So next I'll open one more now. Which one? IE, Internet Explorer. So I'll make a request. See this. First name. We'll go with what? B values. It will never jumble up now because this client is having what? His own session object. See BBB. Second name BBB. Age 222. Phone number 2222. I'll submit. So what happens? ID is not there for him. First time now he's making request. So he's making the request. What happens? ID is not there. So for him another session object is created. Store value is stored. ID is given to him now. He is having his own ID. That client is having what? Chrome is having its own ID. This user, Internet Explorer user, is having his own ID. Like this I'll jumble up now. Again I'll go back. Where you want me to continue now? Chrome or Explorer? Chrome I'll continue. Okay. Start seeing now. Company name. We'll go with what? Yeah, same values. Chrome A values. A current salary 1111. 1111. Expected salary. Again I'll continue on Chrome only. Street AAA. City A. State A. Country A. Submit. So I'll wait now. User is waiting. Yes or no? He can wait now. So now see this. Come. This is Chrome. Sorry, this is Explorer. This is Explorer. Which value I am giving? B value. BBB. BBB. Current salary 222. Expected 222. Submit. Street. BBB. City. BBB. State. BBB. Country. BBB. Submit. Yes. Now which one you want to open? Open. I'll go to Chrome now first. This is in Chrome. See, he's getting his correct values. This guy is getting what? His correct values. No jumbling up. So everything is happening automatically for you. Just use what? Session object. Now it is secure now. Where is the data? Server side. In client side what you will get? Nothing you will get. In cookie what will happen? All data will be in client side. You can see anything. So full secure. So that is why this is highly recommended for storing what? Client specific values. Perfect. You open one more client. How many ever you want, you try. It will not jumble up now. So that is why you should know how to use each and every object. When you use config object, when you use context object, when you use session object. Because these are the objects which store values. And you should know exactly in which object you store what value now. Simply they have the ability to store value. Don't go on storing whatever value wherever you want now. Finally you will find difficulty in programming. So that's why in Solid, no, especially Solid technology, You should have a very strong grip on request object, response object, config object, context object, session object, instance of the servlet, like this. These 6 objects are very, very, very important in servlet programming. And if you observe, from day one I am concentrating only on these objects. Understood? You will understand this. Still I'll give you so many examples on these objects, so many, that will become perfect with this objects. Once you're perfect with these objects, you can write any application. So control, you have to take over the subject like this. It's nothing but, again, object means what? They are interfaces now. Again, let me come to this side now. They are nothing but interfaces. We are studying the library now. Request is what? HTTP servlet request. Response is what? HTTP servlet response. Config is what? Servlet config. We are studying the servlet API library. One class will take some time, that's it. Some classes you can study in one day only, but some classes will take, because they will contain a lot of functionality. Every class or interface contains what? Encapsulates some logic. So it will take time. So that is the idea here. Are you clear? So 2 clients, fine. Now that ID, coming to that ID part, okay, I'll explain that ID part to you. Now what is the difference? What is the difference you understood between the cookie and the session object now? Cookie is storing values in client side. That is the first difference. HTTP session object is storing values in server side. Correct? Fine. Now in cookie, you don't have to track the client. Yes or no? Why you don't have to track the client? Because in every request, client will only send all the values. Getting it now? In cookies, every request what will happen? Request value also will be sent. Cookie value also will be sent. Where? In cookies. But in when you are using server side session management, client will be sending only request values every time. So that is the reason you have to do 2 things. One is maintain session, second one is maintain state of the session. Maintaining session is not necessary when you are using what? Cookie object. When you are using cookie object, maintaining session is not. Let the client forget the server, let the server forget the client, no issue. Because in the next request what's happening? Both will come. Cookie value also will come, request value also will come. So when you are using cookie object, you don't bother about the client. Client will make the request, server will give back the response. They are disconnected, fine. Let the next request come. So server is not even identifying the client. But in that, the client has sent what? Previous values in cookie, current values in request object. And you will get it in the next servlet. You will give back the response in cookie. Again, when the next request comes, current values will be there in what? Request, and means request value, and previous values will come as cookie. So you don't have to bother only there. But here, important, you have to track the client, because the values are stored in server side. Every time a new request comes, you are only getting the new request value. Previous values you are not getting. So that value you are storing it in session object. That value you are storing it in session object, and will give only the ID. Next time ID comes, session object will be identified. So means that these 2 things are nothing but technically called as what? Maintaining session, maintaining state of the session. Maintaining session is done by exchange of ID. Maintaining state of session is done by HTTP session object. Simple. The best solution now you got. So in the last select, what you should do? Collect all the values and dump it into database. That is your assignment. You check it out. Done. So I am focusing main on select technology, not on JDBC. Done. That you do it. Fine. This is done. Then more things to be shown. Yes. Now, don't get confused. Before only I am telling. I told you the difference between cookie object and session object and all that. Yes. Now the ID. In what way is the ID moving from the client to server? That's the question. See, from programming point of view, I have covered everything for you. As a developer, you are doing what? Request start, get session, session.set attribute. That's all you are doing as a developer. More than that, don't bother about anything. All this I am telling to you to get a strong grip onto the subject now. And these are interview questions. That's why I am covering this now. Clear? Yes. Now, ID is getting exchanged. This is the client. This is the server. ID will go on getting exchanged. ID, first time it will come. Second time, ID will go. Again, next time it will come. Like this, ID will go on. Means it's called actually technically J session ID. Value will be different. Name is same. Name of that ID will be J session ID only, but value will be different for one on client. Now, how does this ID move now? Question is that now? How does the ID move? That also you have to see technically now. Understood? See, clearly see this. Session means ID or J session only ideal, right? J session ID J session ID will be exchanged or transported. Transported is the easy word for you to understand. Transported between client and the server in 4 ways. Very, very, very important interview question. 4 ways. Okay. 1. Now don't get confused. Cookie. By default, one cookie will be created. See here, cookie is used for what? Carrying ID. Here the cookie, one default, when you say request.getSession, that ID is created. After creating that ID will be put into one cookie object. Internally, yesterday we were creating, last class we were creating the cookie object. Now we are not creating. The cookie object will be created implicitly. This ID will be put into that cookie object and that will be coming to your client. From the server it will come to you now. Are you clear? So, yes, other ways, okay, is URL rewriting. How is the ID coming now? In the URL. 1, it can come in the cookie. 2, it can come in URL rewriting. 3rd, it can come in hidden form fields. I have to give you all these examples. And 4th, it will be using SSL, secured socket layer. So these are the 4 ways: secured, socket layer. So these are the 4 ways ID will move. I told you ID is moving, but now I am going deeper and going to show you how the ID moves between the client and server. Clear? Default, the ID will move in cookie. Default, the ID will be moving in what? Cookie. Clear? If you want these 3, you have to do explicitly. So this is default. ID will be going in cookie. Now this is default. This has implicit. Okay. Then this is explicit. Developer has to do it. Explicit means developer has to write code to send ID. ID in what? Either in URL, means it will go in the URL. You know URL, no? Top. There, I'll show you, you'll understand. Or in the body part, hidden form fields. Body part, or in the SSL. I'll show you with the example only, you'll understand. Are you clear? So this I have to show you now. So now, see, cookie can do 2 things. Cookie can, so let's come to the first one now, cookie. Okay. Your cookie can do 2 things. What it can do? It can store client specific values. Very good. At the same time, it can be used for what? Exchanging ID. Exchanging ID. And this is done for what? For maintaining session it will be done. Yes or no? This is very important. I showed you this example in the last class. Now I will be showing you this. So that is one thing what you should not get confused about cookie. It can be used for 2 things. One is for storing client specific, which we will never use. The other, it can be used for what? Exchanging the ID. And that will be happening by default. You don't have to worry. I'll show you with which one example only. You will only understand. Are you clear with this? Are you? So I'll just open Chrome browser now. You see now where? Cookies. There only you'll see. J session ID will be seeing now. Done? Shall I clear all this now? So in the next class I will be showing you what? How to send the ID in URL rewriting, hidden form fields. I will be covering there. Today I am only covering how the ID is going in cookie part. All is implicit. You do not have to worry about all this. But these are all very important interview questions. In Solid, the main questions come from session management only. Understood? In Solid, all the interview questions come from session management only. Clear? You see this, I'll open the Chrome browser. Okay, I'll open the Chrome browser. I'm making first the request, and I'll delete all what? Cookies which are there. You know how to delete the cookies? Content settings, all cookies and site data, these many are there. They are belonging to Google. These cookies are belonging to what? Google and all that. I'll delete it. Close. Fine. Let's come back to our application now. First name. I'll enter QQQQ or anything. Ravi, I'll enter. Anything you can give. QQQ. Second name. Q. Age 111. Phone number 1111. Submit. See what happens. Now here all cookies and site data. Localhost. One cookie. JSession ID. This is the value. Not 999. It will be having some big hexadecimal value. I am writing the ID as what? 99977, not like that. Some big number will be there. Okay. I will explain you how that ID gets generated. So like this it will come now. So next, so I'll close it. Yes. Now the user will enter what? Current company name. Something I'll enter. You're going with what? Cluster. Previous company in fee. Anything you can give. Salary 1000, 2000. Submits. Cookie went. That cookie carried what? The JSession ID. The cookie carried the JSession ID. Now in the second select you are writing a request.getSession. Their ID is there. So since ID is there, it will use that corresponding session object. All I am making clearly technically understand it. Yeah? Again it has come back. That ID is here. If you want, you see here. All cookies and it is here. You got the ID here. Again I will close it. Again I will make the next request. Street. Street is Rajkumar Road. State. Anything you enter, man. And I am tired of typing now. Understood? And press submit. ID is going. Request.getSession. Which one? ID. It will get it. Session object is used. And again after you storing the values in the session object, response is given. Again you got back your ID here. So click to see all details. Next if you click here, what will happen? ID is going. So a session object will be identified and all the values from that corresponding session object will be displayed to this particular client. Beautiful now. What all is happening, imagine. Unimaginable. Understood? So I understood the concept, but still I'll give you more information on the subject. Once I give so much information on the subject, you'll get full grip onto this. Clear? But again remember, as a developer your duty is request.getSession, session.setAttribute. Now why I am covering so much in depth? Reason is, if I teach you this much, you will understand how much you know. Understood? Only that much is required. Understood? So this is the entire subject. Fine. So it is going in the cookie now. Now the question, now more things. I'll be going with the next example now. Now we have to study more about the session object. When it gets created, how long it is going to be alive in the container. Correct? How to destroy it. Yes or no? So for every client one session object is getting created, means what will happen now? What will happen? So many session, 1000 clients come, 1000 session objects now. Finally what will happen? Server will crash. That's a resource. Object is nothing but what? And source. So somewhere the session object has to be destroyed. Understood? So we have to understand this life cycle now. When does the session object first get created? It gets created when the ID is not coming. The session object gets created when the first time you call, means it knows. See, the method is same. Which one? Request.getSession only. Everywhere you are calling request.getSession only. But whenever you call that, it checks the ID. If ID is not there, new session object. If ID is there, it will use the old one. Same method. But functional device is designed this much of logic implementation. So first time checks, not there, creates a new one. Fine, goes on creating, that is okay, but when it should be destroyed now. So the session object can be destroyed in two ways. Two ways. So you know, later on I'll compare. Now concentrate only on session object. Don't think about other objects. Clear? All objects I'll cover later. I'll compare it. Life and death of all objects I'll again compare later. Means when request object gets created, session, all that I'll compare later. Now see this. Session object means HTTP session object. When I say session object, HTTP session object can be destroyed in two ways. One, implicitly. Two is explicitly. It's more clearly I'll be telling tomorrow only, little I covered today. Implicitly means client is making all the requests, suddenly he'll stop midway. Okay, or he'll log out only. Without botheration, he is not considering, he'll simply log out. That time, the container, see it is implementation now. One vendor will have his own time. In Tomcat container, the session object will be waiting for 1800 seconds. Means 30 minutes. One on container or one on vendor, one on time limitation. 30 minutes it will wait. If the user is not making any request or using that session object, makes a request means he'll use the session object now. If he makes a request, what will you do? Request.get session, you'll use it. So if he's not sending the request and if the session object is not getting utilized for 30 minutes, by default it is. You can change the time. Okay, by default 30 minutes it will be destroyed implicitly. More clearly I'll be showing you all this. If you want, you can destroy it explicitly also. You can set the time, increase it or decrease it. For that, today I'll show you one way, tomorrow I'll cover one more way. Okay, you can call a method called as invalidate. Session dot invalidate. If you call this method, finished, immediately it will be destroyed. Understood? It will be destroyed what? Immediately. Invalidate is the method. Means this is a very important interview question. How do you destroy the session object? By calling what? Invalidate method. Session dot invalidate method. If you call that, it will be the session immediately. And you should know when to call this method. Understood? If you call this method before using your value, what will happen? I show you all with example. Values will be lost. So in the last, you have to call this method. I show you. Okay, where to call it, when to call it. So immediately it will be destroyed. Okay. Now one more thing. I want to be destroyed. Means if you call this immediately, it will be destroyed. Otherwise, it will be destroyed implicitly after how many minutes? 30 minutes. I want to reduce the time. That also can be done. Okay. You can say what? There's a method called as set max inactive interval. Yeah, session dot set max inactive interval. If you tell this, what will happen? Here it is seconds. 10 means 10 seconds, or it's up to you now. If you want to reduce it to, by default it is 1800 seconds or 30 minutes. You can give it as what? 10 into 60 means 600 seconds. So it will wait for 600 seconds or 10 minutes. If the user doesn't come, session object will be destroyed now. ID will come, remember now, but session object will already be destroyed. In that case, what will happen? You'll ask a question. ID will come, you understand now when the ID will come, but session object is destroyed because you have reduced the time. So you'll be sending the ID, but session object will be destroyed. That time what will happen? It will create one more new session object and it will attach it. But in that new session object, old values will not be there. All this I have to show you now. In the new session object, values will not be there. So I have to show you an example. So the next example what I will show you is, I will be fully concentrating on these concepts. Which one? I'll show you the ID. You can, if you want, you can get the ID. Not in which one? Browser. Programmatically also you can call. So I'll expose some methods to you. Set max inactive interval. One more is session dot get ID. If you call this, you can get the ID. We do not call this. If at all you want to find out the ID, you can call it. These are the. I'm exposing you all the methods of what now? HTTP session interface. Session dot get created time. When was it created? Some methods I'll show you now. Last access time. Understood? When was it last accessed? Previously means all that. When you see an output, you'll understand now. Clear? So okay. So some more methods I'm going to show in what? These are all methods what I'm showing you. Set attribute, get attribute, invalidate. Understood? Max inactive interval, get ID, all these methods are belonging to HTTP session interface library. We are going to see what functionality or logic these methods contain. And these are all very important interview questions. That's why I am covering all this in depth. Otherwise I could have finished the class by telling what? Request.get session, session.set attribute, over. Class would have been over, no? So why I'm stressing on all this is because these are terrific interview questions what you'll be facing. Clear? But very simple. Okay, document is there. Everything is there. You don't have to worry. I've prepared a very powerful document for this. If you read my solid document, any interview in the world you will clear. World. It's a challenge. Okay. So now let's see this. I have to show you what? The next example now? Yeah. So this is also one of my favorite example. Which one? HTTP session creation. Full life cycle you can see. Clearly see now, when the session object gets created, clearly you will see it. So now if you make a request to HTML, session object is not created. Observe all this. So in this example now what I am doing, there is an HTML, very simple it is. It's containing only a few things. See, enter your email. That's it. We are not going to use this value also. So user will give the value, it will come to what? 1. Means it will come to first servlet. So it will come to first servlet. In first servlet what we are doing? Nothing. Simply I am giving back response. Nothing I am doing. Is the session object created? 2 requests client is making. One for HTML. Other one for what? First servlet. Session object is still not created for him. So session object is only created only first time when you say request.get session and no ID is coming. Means unnecessarily, perfectly designed. Unnecessary for all the clients, it will not create what? Session object. The container will not create the session object. Unnecessary for all the clients. Means if you are making a request to HTML or if you are making a request to one simple servlet and not calling request dot, here it is not created. So when you click on this, it will go to second servlet. In second servlet what is going to happen? Now we are saying this. This time it will be created. And now look at all the method. Get last access time. Now only it was created now. So it will show you the same time. When was it created? Last accessed. Then next other method, is it new? There are few more methods you are saying. Is new, should be what? True. Because it got created now. Understood? Get ID. That ID I was showing you now. That ID will be displayed now. Where it was displayed in the cookie. But now if you want you can get it programmatically also. Now okay fine. Anyway I am printing this long time. Session.get last access time is what? Long value. It will give you what you know? Last access time. Number of milliseconds. Starting from when you know? 1st Jan 1970. Your date concept will come into picture now. So from 1st Jan 1970 till now how many milliseconds have passed? That is the return type of what? Get last access time. Long value. That long what you have to do? Pass it into date. You pass it into date, you will get the date. It was created now, means the time it will give you now. Done? So then next, session.get last access time, that is. Here it is creation time. Return type of get creation time is also what? Milliseconds only, long. Pass it to the date constructor, you will get the date. Then next is get max inactive interval. How many seconds it can remain inactive? It should be what? According to Tomcat, 1800 seconds. It will return type is again int there, but it is 1800 seconds. Done? Fine. Now as soon as I click this, it will go to what now? Third servlet. In third servlet what will happen? Same copy paste I am doing. Sorry, third servlet now. Third servlet, copy paste I am doing. Same methods I am calling here. So access time will be, when was it last accessed? That time it will give creation time, ID, all that it will give. So then fourth servlet, same I am doing, nothing else, copy paste. One servlet, you understand? So everywhere we will see this output now. Very interesting example, see this. And this is others request. 18th example, focus. Here you will be seeing a lot of concepts on what? Session. Full clearly you will understand. I will open Chrome browser and I will delete this cookie also. Yeah, it's been deleted. Yes, enter your email. I'll type, but we are not using this value at all because our concentration is what yeah? Session object. So I'll enter email, RAVI, something like any at gmail.com, anything you type, but this value will not be used only. Nothing we are doing. See this in the first servlet. When I entered that, it's going to what? First servlet. I am not even saying request or get parameter, nothing. Leave it. Simply that's on screen. But is the session object created till now? No. You want proof? Go to what? All cookies and site data. Do you find the JSession ID here? The request had gone to what? Servlet now. So you made two requests actually. One was the HTML file, first one. Second one was the servlet, first servlet. Still the session ID has not been created. Fine, let's come back. I'll click on second button now. It is going to which one now? Second servlet. In second servlet, what you are doing? I'm just calling one method, request.get session, that's all. And other things you know now, session.get ID and all that. See, click, see this. Session is new, true. Session.get ID, which one? These are all output. ID, session.get ID. Get last access time, this is the number of milliseconds from when? 1st Jan 1970. That time passing into what? The constructor of date. It will give like this. The time you can see. Now it has been last accessed. Means now only it got created. And the same time you can see for what? Created time and access time is same. Creation happened now only now. Saturday, April 5, whatever time. Access now only it was created, now only it was accessed. Same time. Max inactive interval is what? 1800 milliseconds. Clearly you can understand the life cycle of what? The session object. When it is getting created, when it will get destroyed, all I am showing you now. So in this example, concepts are covered. Done. Next. Okay, see in the third solid if you want. Okay, third solid what it is doing? You know the code what we have written. I am saying request.get session. So ID didn't go. So that's why it is creating the session object is new. True. Return type of is new is what? Boolean. Get ID. Return type is what? That ID. Whatever you are seeing there. Then get new last access time. The return type of get last access time is long. I pass that to the constructor of date. Get creation time. Return type is long. I pass that to date. Get max inactive interval. Same methods are getting executed and there I am displaying in UI. That's it. If you want to put it as SOP also, it will print it into the server console. So the same thing now. And now this time you see ID will be there. Sorry, you close this and open again. See localhost. Yes. JSession ID. When did it come now? When I made the request to second servlet. And look at the ID here. 5150 something like this now. This ID and what I am printing. This is out.println. See that is coming. But this is out.println. Both are same now. 5150. You understood the difference now? That ID was coming in cookie. Leave that. But this is output of what? 5150. This value and this value notice. Same. So you can get that ID. How did I get it? Session.get ID. Just I am showing you. If you want you can get it. So like that one client will have one ID. Session ID and one session object. So fine. Next. I'll close this. Okay then. See now. I'll make the request for third solid now. Is new will be what now? False. ID will be same. Make a note if you want. 5150 CD something like that. ID will be same. Is new will be what? False. Last access time will be what? This time. I am accessing now. No. When was it last? This time it will be there. Creation time. When was it? Means it will be same now. Last access time and creation time will be same. And max inactive interval also will be same. See this. Is new is false. ID is same 5150. Done. Last accessed. When was it last accessed? When previously we had accessed it. No, that time it is giving. Creation time is same. Why is creation time and access time same? Because what time it was created, that time only it was last accessed. But now I am accessed now. When I go to fourth solid, it will change. I am accessed it this time now. Creation time will remain same now. But when I go to the fourth solid, access time will change. Because now I have accessed, second time I have accessed it. So I accessed it in second time. Now see this. See the time will change. Now it is same. 5:13 means April 5, 13 minutes 49. Sorry, 1 o'clock 49 minutes. Whatever. Understood? So this time and this time is right now same. But now see when I go to the fourth solid. Yes, it was last accessed in the previous request now. So what is the time? 13:52. But creation time was what? Still remains same. 13 minutes, sorry, 13 hours. 13 hours, 49 minutes, 35 seconds. Creation time remains same. Access time will change. Again you go to next select, it will give you this access time. Creation time will remain same. But is new is false, ID is same. Done. So one client will have only one ID. It will be exchanging. So I am printing and showing you, but this is the ID which will be coming in the cookie. Understood? This is the ID which will be coming in the cookie now. So this is how it goes on working now. Are you clear? Yes. So now what I'll do, session dot is new false. Yes, now let's see 1800 seconds if the client doesn't make the request. Now what will happen? Session object will be destroyed. Yes. So if I want, I can decrease the time. See now, how will I do it? Simple concepts. In the third servlet, I am changing the time to what? 5 seconds. 5 seconds, that's all. Within 5 seconds you have to make the request. Otherwise what will happen? It will be destroyed. And remember, when you make changes like this, it should be deployed. It should be deployed. Changes means if you make, understood, it should be updated. Anyway, here it is integrated, it is upgrading, it is deploying. So now see, I'll close the browser, I'll go with the new client. See, very interesting. If I make, I'll be very fast now. Okay, observe the ID. Within 5 seconds, if I make the request, his new will be what? False. Carefully see this. First I'll go slow or faster. I'll go slow, then I'll go fast. Okay, email, nothing to do with this. Simply I'll type first. So user made now no session object for him. Okay, I think, okay, one second, I'll close it and open once again. We'll delete all the cookies. See here, settings, yeah, delete everything. Yes, now he's entering the email first. Is the session ID created for him? No. See there, it is not there. Done. I'll close this. Yes. Second, I'll click. Second, what is happening? Session ID is created. Is new true. See, this time a new ID 65FF. Earlier it was some number, now it is some other number. Now go and see one cookie J session ID 65FF. Correct. Okay, but the time is now 1800 seconds. In the third select we are reducing the time. Yes or no? To how much? 5 seconds. Which method I called? Set max inactive interval. Third. So is new is false. Okay, that is correct. ID is same 65FF. Okay, but time has been changed to what? 5 seconds. That's the problem. Time has been changed to 5 seconds. See this. So when it is 5 seconds now, it's already gone. But ID is still in my machine. Yes or no? I'll close. See, this ID is still there in my machine. So ID will go this time. But that side, session object is already destroyed. Now what will happen? These are the doubts you are getting. Now I'm showing you with proof. Fourth, is new is going to be what? True. Carefully see, ID will be different. It is 65FF now. But ID will be different. Is new is true, C3D, some other number now. Because it was destroyed and the new session object is which is created is having 1800 as the lifetime now, span. And now let's see what has happened here. Close this and open all cookies and site data, localhost, J session ID, the new one is coming this time now. Yes or no? Everything done. You only understand the subject. So when the session object is getting created, when it will be destroyed, you should have a grip on this now. Only then you can write your logics. Otherwise, how will you write? So you should be extremely cautious in setting the time for what? Session object. See, I'll show you. Are you clear with all these concepts now? So done, fine. Okay, but I'll go fast now, within 5 seconds. That also I'll show it and complete. Fine, see this. But this time will be very fast. But Disney will be what now? Always false. ID will be same. So carefully observe. Okay, first request no problem. Second also no problem. But I'm going to third. There I should be fast. Is new is what? True this time. Time, okay. Here no problem, you take any amount of time, but now you are reduced and you should click again, false. ID same now. In pause, video you pause and see, or increase the time, what? 10 seconds. That time you can notice, if you don't make the request within 10 seconds, it will be destroyed. If you make, it will session.isName will be false. So this is how the session object behaves. So you should know the behavior of this object. Why I stressed on all this topic now is, see, let me come to the previous example. Previous example which I showed. Are you all clear with the session concept? What is the concept you understood here? If you make the request to HTML, session object is not created. If the client makes the request to servlet also, session object is not created. Only it will be created first time when you say request.getSession. Till then it will not be bothered about the ID also. It will not be bothered about the client also. First time when you call request.getSession, now ID will be checked, and then if the ID is not there, session object will be created. Done. So like this you understand concepts. Yes. Now let's come to the previous example which we are working. Which on the 17th example. So first is personal details servlet. Yes. Personal details servlet. Next one would be what? Professional details servlet. Yes, you know what we are doing. We are getting the value storing in session. By chance, in the address details servlet, I have an option. I can set the time, or I can invalidate also. Anything I can do. Invalidate, what it will do? Immediately it will destroy. I will show you that now. Okay. Then otherwise I can set the time. If by chance the session object is destroyed now, what will happen when you say request.getSession in the next a new session object will be there in show all details. But what are the values you will get? No values are there. You will start getting what? Null value now. Your old values are all lost. Why they are lost? Because session object was destroyed, values are lost. So that is why session object you should handle carefully. That's why I am taking so much in depth now. Yeah? So see this, you want me to do? I want me to set the time or invalidate. First we'll see in time only. Time I'll show you. Then I'll show you invalidate. Remember, deployment should happen. Okay, go and check. It should happen. Otherwise, see reloading. Okay. Otherwise it will not work. So you should be extreme. See it's. Did you see it's restarting? No. Yeah. Fine. Now next, make the request. What is that URL? I'll take this. So I'm working with the 17 previous example. See this. First name. Time is what? 10 seconds I have set. So I'll go with AAA. Time is set in which one? This servlet or next servlet? Professional we are not setting. In address we are setting. So here you take your own time, no problem. Address, street, okay. But here now it will be set to what? Submit. I'll make immediately. Now you are getting all the values. Immediately I made within 10 seconds. I'll exceed 10 seconds. See what will happen. I'll go with different value. BBB. Yes. Here also no problem. Here also enter. So here is where 10 seconds has been set. Yes. If I make the request after 10 seconds, it will go to the next servlet. Request.getSession. Session object is already destroyed now. So ID will go, but there is no session object. So when ID is going, no session object is there, what will happen? New session object is created. But in that new session object, if you say session.getAttribute, you will say the same code is getting executed. Get attribute of fn, ln, you will call. No values will be there. And it will be null. Understood how cautious you have to be? That's why the subject is so important. You should know the life of every object. Until and unless you get the grip of life of all these objects, how will you write the code? Values are there. Without values, what logic will you write now? Will you insert null value in database? Understood now? Same thing will happen for what? Invalidate. But invalidate, immediately it will be destroyed. Understood? So I'll go with what now? Invalidate method. So where is that? Address detail. So I'll comment this. Understood? And I'll call which one third now? Immediately it will be destroyed. Now developer is destroying it explicitly. So you should destroy it explicitly. If you don't destroy it explicitly, it will be destroyed implicitly. What? 1800 seconds. Should destroy it. Okay, but when should the developer destroy? I'll tell you. In the last you have to destroy. When you complete using your session object. Okay, I'll show you that. First see this invalidate. Here, how much hour fast you are no use. Why? Session object is already gone. See, I'll make the request. You go in 500 km speed also no use here. Why? Already destroyed. Understood? So one implicitly it will destroy, two explicitly also you can destroy it. So this is the control you have to take. Actually, session object should be destroyed when you know. Not here also. Time you set wherever you want. That is up to you. Okay. But destroy, if you want to destroy it explicitly, generally we do it in the show all details select last time. See, after getting all the values, not after printing. Don't get confused because I am calling get attribute here. After you retrieve all the values, then you call invalidate. Means don't think it should be in the last line. Sorry, here. Don't think it should be in the last line like this. It should be after you call all the get attributes and destroy it immediately. Why we are destroying it? For better resource management. Otherwise unnecessarily the session object will be there. Generally when you say logout now, when the user clicks logout now, when you write an application you will understand this. That time they will be calling what? Session dot invalidate immediately. That side. Okay. But sometimes you will close midway and go. You close the browser and go. You will not even say logout. Middle you will exit. So that time, depending on the time and all that. Now it will be destroyed. Now one application they will have one time. Now what is the ideal time to set, you might ask, for which one? Session to get destroyed. It depends on one application. For secure applications like banking applications, 2 minutes or 3 minutes maximum. You don't use your application. Immediately you try to, don't do anything with your bank application for 3 minutes. Just see what will happen. After 3 minutes if you try to give a value, session expired, please log in from the beginning you will get. But networking sites, which one? Yahoo, Rediff and all, 20 minutes also they will allow you because they want people like you only on the site, yes or no? So it depends. The ideal time to be set for the application will vary from application to application, and that you can configure by calling what? Session.set max inactive interval. Okay. Ideally, okay, that's how you can do it. Fine. So you can set the time. Fine now. So but the time can be, okay, I think I will continue that in the next class. You can it will be overloaded now. So I think you got most of the concepts today. Understood? So these concepts you get it now, okay, and work on the session object more clearly and you will understand all this. And so I have to give you some more notes, okay, on this. So are you clear with the session object now? When does it get created? When you say for the first time, request start, get session. Only then it will be created. Understood? And next time onwards it will be using the same session object. I think I have covered everything. So be careful with this. Yes, now the coming to the document part. All the points are covered here, just in 2 pages. Session management with what? HTTP session. When user is interacting with the web-based application, he can send many requests to the application and the application has to remember all the requests coming from the client. Yes? There will be also multiple clients accessing the same one application with what? Multiple requests. The idea of session management is identifying all the requests of a single client and making one session and also storing all the client specific values in that session. So these are all points related when you are talking about what? The heading you don't forget. Session management with HTTP session. These points you have to remember because we are discussing purely about HTTP session. So that's when it comes. Now what is a session? Identifying all the multiple requests of a single client and making one session. How it will be done? By exchanging an ID. So when the ID comes, it will be put into it will be classifying. The container goes on doing it, and all the requests having one ID will be considered as one session, and one session will have what now? One session object. Simple. All the requests coming with the same ID will be considered as one session, and one session will be having one session object. So multiple clients will have their own session. One session. One client will have one session because they are grouping now. And one client will have his own session object. Done? Yes. Session management with HTTP session involves two things with HTTP session. One is what? Maintaining state of the session. Two is what? Maintaining session, or also known as session tracking. Technical words. Done? Now these are the two things which will come when you are dealing with HTTP session. Okay. Next, maintaining state of the session. Yes. It means storing all the client specific values used by a particular client in a session. Understood? Then next, the state of the session will be stored in HTTP session object. When user is doing the conversation with application running in the server, you might need to store the client specific data in some object, so that as long as that user is doing the conversation, you can access the data, access that object which contains the data specific to that particular client. Done? Next, maintaining, this is one part, maintaining state of the session. The other part now, what? Why you have to maintain session? State of the session means is used for storing values. Now we are saying why we maintain the session. It will happen implicit, but why we do it? It means identifying all the multiple requests of a single client and forming one single session. HTTP is a stateless protocol. That's the reason it is required. That is, after a single request and response scenario, there is no connection between the client and the server. The server identifies every request coming from the same client as what? A new request, and even though the client is an old client, he's an old client, but it will be thinking it's a new client. That's the problem here. So due to this problem, all the multiple requests coming from the same client should be framed into one single session, which is called as maintaining session or session tracking. Session maintenance is done with the help of exchanging an exclusive ID called JSession ID between the client and the server. The unique JSession ID generated by the server for every client is exchanged between the client and the server in 4 different ways: cookies, URL rewriting, hidden form field, SSL. Today I have covered how to send ID. It is implicit, but I showed you it is that ID is going in cookie. Done? Next class we'll see the other things. Yes. What is cookie? Again, same topic. It is a piece of information which contains name and value, both of type string. So the name is what? JSession ID. Value is what? That session ID. Name of the cookie is JSession ID. Value is that session ID. Yes. So that's the thing. Cookie object will be created in server and will be moved to client machine with response object and stored at the client machine. Always cookie schedules between what? Client and server. Yes, the point now. Cookie can be used for two things. One, it can be used for storing client specific values. Last class we covered this. In today's class what we saw? It is used for exchanging JSession ID between client and server. Implicitly it will happen. Container by default creates one cookie object with the name JSession ID to store the value of generated session ID as a part of the default session management. The server sends the cookie to the client and the client returns the cookie when the client makes another request. By default, the container uses cookies as a transport to move the session ID from the client to server and server to client. By default, cookie will be used to transport the session ID. Following is the way. Yes, your diagram comes now. Most important diagram. Trying to put it in a single screen. Huh? See the heading? What is the heading? Following is the way container does the default session management. Okay, just I'll reduce it still more. I think now that's the heading. I can't show you. Now see this. First request when the client makes, no ID is there. You'll go to the servlet instance. If you're calling request.getSession, session object is created. ID will be created, session object will be created, and ID is given back now. So what is the ID for this client? 999. See, that's the client number 1. Client number 1 is having his own ID, is having his own session object. So ID is going. Similarly, one more client can make a request. He will have his own session object, own ID. For him, the ID is going now what? 777. Next time the request comes, depending on the ID, this client can make the request or that client can make the request. Based on the ID, session object will be used. Simple. Very simple. Yes? So if you want to clearly understand this, I'll give you an example. I am the server. I'm giving a simple, which one? A real life example. I am the server. Okay, you are the client. Okay. Now there are so many clients. So and we are communicating using what? Stateless protocol. You make the request, I'll give a response to you, and I'll forget you. Neither do you, I know you, nor do you know me. Understood? So again, next request. I don't know who is making now. So for this, what I'll do, I have to keep track of you. So now some person, A person makes a request. Somebody, say ABC. For what will I do? I'll check whether he is sending me an ID first time. If he is not sending me an ID, for him I'll give an ID called as A. Another person makes a request, XYZ. So for him I'll give back the ID called as X. PQR makes a request. For him I'll give an ID called as P. Like that for everybody I'll give an ID. Next request comes. He'll be sending, I'll not be looking at who the client is. I'll be only concentrating on what now? ID. A ID has come now, the request is coming from ABC. P comes now, the request is from PQR. X comes now, the request is from XYZ. Simple. So exchanging the ID and the server will be keeping track. Simple concept. Okay. So it will keep track like this, or it will maintain session like this. But values are stored in session object. So this ID will be used to recognize that session object. Otherwise it's impossible for the server to identify the client and his session object. Done? Yes. Now putting this in points. You understood everything? Container verifies the incoming request whether it contains the cookie with the name JSession ID or not. Okay, let me pull it. Okay. If the client is new and does not contain a session ID, the container will create a new session ID in the following way. How it will create? One vendor will write in one way, man, generating that ID. Just writing in a simple way, yeah. So it will take the client IP address, it will take the time, as well it will take some sequence number, because it will be creating so many objects now, session objects. So means including all these three. This is one of the algorithm used. Like this vendor can have his own algorithm to create the ID that you are seeing now. 65FF something and all is coming. So like this he using three things. This is one of the algorithm used. Like this they can use any algorithm. So after creating the ID they will generate one hexadecimal number. And you cannot recognize it. Understood? Means it's very difficult for us to remember. That's it. So like this it will create the ID. So first when the ID is not there, what is the container doing? When ID is not there, first it will create the session ID. After creating that, it will create what? The session object. Then it will bind the session ID to the session object. A container creates the cookie with the same name JSession ID, and ID will be used as the cookie value. So it is creating a cookie with name what? Most important, JSession ID. Value is what? And the session ID will be used as the cookie value. Session.getID. Okay, that will be added as the value. Means when the cookie is created, now I'll be writing this code tomorrow and showing you. Simple it will do. Cookie C1 is equal to new cookie. Can you guess what they write? JSession ID. You know how to work with the which one now? Cookies, comma, session dot get ID. Then what they'll do? Response dot add cookie of C1. That's it, over now. 2 lines of code, man. That's all they'll be doing. Who vendor is writing this kind of code? Okay, I'll talk more about that code next class. So anyway, just I showed you how the cookie object will be created and how it will be added into the response object. Done? Yes. Container adds the cookie to the response object. Done. Next. Following things will happen when the request comes with the session ID. What will happen? If the client is old and the incoming request contains the cookie with the name JSession ID, then container takes the corresponding session ID from the cookie. With that session ID, example I am writing, it will be hexadecimal. Remember that? Container verifies any session object is available with that session ID inside the container. Okay. If session object is found inside the container with the same session ID, then container processes the request. It will not create a new one. Clear? Work with those two examples. These two examples are again given for you what? concept. Some more interview questions are there, powerful interview questions, most important interview questions based on session. You will understand those questions only when you work on these two examples and come tomorrow. Otherwise, it will be theory, it will vanish. So you code, you get the grip of it, you will get doubt. Those doubts are nothing but your interview questions, which I will be clearing in the next class. Simple. Yeah. More grip if you want on this, you have to do projects. Clearly you will understand everything. Yeah. That's it. You when you work on projects in company and all that, or here, wherever, will get the full grip onto this. But the concept of session management, what? Storing client specific values. Done. That's it then.